Someone you love is going to die. You know that. You've thought about it. You've probably lost sleep over it. But here's the question nobody asks. Does your dog know it too? We like to think animals live in the moment. No past. No future. Just now. Just the next meal. The next walk. The next warm patch of sunlight on the floor. And in some ways, that sounds peaceful. But the science tells a different story. Because animals don't just react to death. Some of them appear to anticipate it. Some grieve it. Some seem to search for explanations that never come. And when you look closely at what animals actually do around death, the line between them and us gets very uncomfortable, very fast. First, let's ask the basic question. Do animals even know what death is? For a long time, scientists assumed no. Death awareness, they argued, required a concept of the future. You have to understand that life continues, and then stops. That's abstract thinking. That's supposedly human. But then researchers started watching animals more carefully, and what they found was hard to explain away. Elephants will return to the bones of a dead family member, sometimes years later, and touch them slowly with their trunks. They don't do this with the bones of strangers, only family. They seem to recognize something specific in those remains, something that mattered. Chimpanzees have been observed carrying their dead infants for days, sometimes weeks, grooming them, protecting them, refusing to let go. Dolphins have been seen supporting the bodies of dead calves at the surface of the water, as if trying to help them breathe. These are not random behaviors. These are not instinct in any simple sense. These animals are responding to the absence of something that used to be there. But what about your dog? Dogs are different from elephants and chimps. They live inside human households. They bond with human families. They track your routines, your moods, your presence. So when a person dies, what does a dog actually experience? There are hundreds of documented cases of dogs sitting beside hospital beds, refusing to leave. Dogs that stopped eating after an owner passed. Dogs that kept waiting at the door for someone who was never coming back. The most famous is Hachiko, a dog in Japan who waited at a train station every day for 9 years after his owner died. Every single day. Same time. Same spot. We call that loyalty. But what was Hachiko actually experiencing? He wasn't performing grief for anyone. There were no cameras for most of those 9 years. He was simply waiting. Because in his world, his person had not come back yet. That is not an animal that has no concept of absence. That is an animal living inside a loss it cannot explain. Here's where it gets stranger. Some animals don't just react to death. They seem to sense it coming. Oscar was a cat living in a nursing home in Rhode Island. Staff noticed something unusual. When patients were within hours of dying, Oscar would walk into their room and curl up beside them. He did this accurately over 100 times. Doctors eventually used his behavior as a signal to call families. Nobody trained Oscar to do this. He wasn't rewarded for it. He simply did it. Scientists think he may have been detecting biochemical changes in the body. Certain compounds released during organ failure have distinct smells. Oscar's nose was picking up something humans couldn't detect. But here's the thing. Oscar kept returning. He didn't visit once and leave. He stayed. He sat beside something his senses were telling him was ending. Whether that means he understood death the way you do is impossible to say. But he knew something was different. Something was leaving. So what does an animal think happens when you die? Probably not what you think. They don't have funerals. They don't have religion. They don't have a concept of heaven or the afterlife or legacy. What they have is presence and absence. You are there. Then you are not. And for animals that bonded with you, that absence doesn't compute. There is no framework for it. No explanation arrives. The smell fades slowly. The routines stop. The sounds disappear. And some animals just keep waiting. Not because they're confused in a simple way, but because everything their brain learned about the world included you in it. And now that information doesn't match reality anymore, that might actually be its own kind of grief. Not identical to human grief, but something real. Something that costs them something. We spend a lot lot of time asking whether animals are smart enough to understand death. But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the question is whether understanding death even helps. Humans understand death completely. We know it's coming. We know it's permanent. We build entire religions and philosophies just to cope with that knowledge, and it still breaks us. Your dog doesn't know the word for death. It doesn't know about permanence or grief or loss. It just knows you were here, and now you're not, and it keeps checking the door anyway. Maybe that's not so different from us after all.